Have you ever wondered how to be okay with being single? This was something I struggled with for many years. Going from centering men and all I'm wanting to do is be married to finally coming to a place in my life where I'm actually very content being single. Where I'm actually saying things like, man, if the right person doesn't come, I'll be okay with being single. I'd rather be single than take on any extra stress or be with the wrong person. You know what I'm saying? If I'm with someone, it needs to be someone who allows me to walk into the mission and the purpose that God has for me. I can't allow any jokers to distract me. And I've gotten to that point, but it's taken many years. And I didn't realize the depths of how hard it is until I was speaking to a friend. And I told them how I got to a point where, you know what, I would be okay with being single if it meant that I have my peace and I can walk into being the best self I can be. And you know what she said, Nikki, you know how hard that is to get to? This is a woman in her 60s that's been married before. And she was like, that is so hard to get to because a lot of people want to just find a person. And I've gotten to the point where I'm contented. I'm like, if God wants to send a person, send them. But other than that, I'm not going to date any type of joker just because I'm not okay with being single. Okay? So we're going to get into it on how to be okay with being single and how to get to that point. First things first, stop focusing on the fact that you are single. Stop focusing on the mere fact that you are single. That is the first step. Don't read books about it. Don't watch videos about it, especially if you're a Christian, because I know how toxic and obsessive it gets in the church. Where when you talk to women, that's all they want to do. Like if that's the only purpose that God has over your life is to get married, and that's that. Don't join any type of single groups, especially Christian ones, because you know what you're going to find in there? A lot of single women who are not okay with being in their own company and they're obsessed, desperate to find someone, and that's all they're thinking about, that's all they're praying about, that's all they're dreaming about. That's it. Because when you talk to them, there's nothing else going on. All it does, it just feeds into that part of you that's like, I'm not okay with being single, I'm very unhappy. I find that when you just focus on yourself being single and that's all you're focusing on, that's when I see people are the most depressed, they're lonely, they're very unhappy with their lives, they're very unsatisfied because you're focusing on being single the wrong way, because you're seeing single as a form of lack. It is not a lack. You are not in lack if you are single. You are not in lack because you don't have your better half. You are not in lack. We're gonna cut that out right now. I'm so passionate about this because I went through too many years feeling like something was missing, I was never enough. And I know they preach about being whole, but let's be real. I went through too many years feeling like I just needed to meet that guy. That was the only thing I needed. I didn't need to make any friends. I didn't need to focus on my purpose. I needed to just pause my life until I met that person. No, you're not pausing over here. As long as you're this video is for women who are looking to live their best life, being single, and if they meet the person, it's an addition to, it's there to make their life better. But this type of video is not for you if you're like, oh, I absolutely need to meet a partner, and that's my only mission in life. I'm sorry. This video is not for you. This goes into the next point. You need to shift your focus. You know, I once heard a story of a woman where she was sharing. She was in her 50s, and she was married, and she had 2 beautiful children. And one of the things she said was, which I thought was very interesting, is she said, you know, I envy single women. And I was like, wait, what? That caught my attention because I was like, what is she talking about here? She went on to say that when she was 35 years old, what she had done is she basically put her whole life on pause until she met that guy. And so she basically had no fun before that, being single. She never really enjoyed being single because she thought that her life started once she met that man. Don't get me wrong, she did say that she enjoyed being married, but you see what people fail to realize? you know, once you're married, right? You no longer have that independency in terms of being single, the perks of being single. You no longer have the perks of, you know, just getting up and following your dreams and doing what you got to do. You no longer have the perks of just having your own time, and that's that. There's a lot of perks. There's a lot of perks you probably have heard that's very popular, but I have to say this is that you should never pause your life. Hearing her story made me realize that how I came a long way. I think that was the revelation where I was like, wow, I'm actually enjoying being single. And I'm not pausing my life for anyone. I'm not pausing my life for no man. You don't ever see a man pause a life for a woman. That's the funny part. You don't ever see that. A man will go to the gym. They'll continue going out with their friends. They'll go to festivals. They'll do fun things with their life. They'll continue to live their life until they see, you know, a nice girl on the street, and then they'll go up to them. But you never see a man pause for a woman, but you see a woman pause their life for a man. I think that's very interesting, and we need to change that narrative. We need to change that narrative. Nothing wrong with desiring it. Nothing's wrong with that. But we have to make sure that our focus is in the right place. We have to make sure that we are not stopping our lives, stopping ourselves from enjoying moments in our lives of where we are for someone else because you want to meet some man. Okay, let me continue. So I want you to picture this. Picture there's a circle with many dots, and then there's that one dot in the circle that represents dating or finding a man. And all the other dots represents all the many things that you can do with your life. So it may represent traveling, reading, I don't know, going on walks, going on picnics with friends, going to events. And then that one little dot is dating. Like, that's it. Dating is like probably like 10% of your whole life. 10%. So basically, there's another 90% chunk that is not being used because all you're focusing is on that little dot that's 10% when there's just so much more to life. But instead, we're all choosing to just focus on dating. The little part of like the life that God has given you. Instead of focusing on the 90%, we're just focused on the 10%. And then we get down when it comes to dating because we don't have that 10% when we have 90%. I think that's very interesting. Doesn't it give you perspective? Like, once I started to figure that out and I was like, what? I'm letting 10% dictate how I feel and how I feel about my status of being single when there's 90% of other things that could potentially help me to make me feel and embrace being single and being okay with it. Like, isn't that crazy when you think about it, that it's only a fraction of what God has for you? It's only one thing. We need to put it into perspective. When it comes to being single, there are so many benefits, but instead we're busy looking at Mary and Jerry in the relationship, and we're like, no, we want that. We want that. We're just so focused on watching Mary and Jerry in a relationship, and we're like, we want that. And then all of a sudden, because we see Mary and Jerry together, automatically we start questioning our singlehood, and we're like, oh my goodness, is something wrong with me? Is there something that I need to change? What do I need to improve? You know what? I'm not happy with where I am. You know what? I'm not happy. I just need that. I need a Jerry, my version of Jerry. So I can be okay with my status because we're looking at their highlights, okay? We're looking at the highlights that they're showing and we're like, oh, we want that. Society celebrates marriages, but you'll notice that a lot of times they don't celebrate singleness. I wonder why. Like, why aren't there celebrations for people who are single and who have learned to be okay with who they are and have learned to enjoy their company and learn to be their best self? Why isn't there celebrations for that? Do you know how hard it is to get to that? When someone gets to the point where they celebrate themselves, and you know what it is? It's really a reflection of how people feel about themselves. It always goes back to how you feel about themselves internally. And so a lot of people, when they go into relationships, they're not truly happy with themselves, right? So they go in because they're like, oh, I want that person. And so they no longer celebrate being single because you'll hear people say that. I've heard people say, well, I hated being single. The day I get in a relationship, I can actually say that I actually enjoyed being single. I can actually say that. But can you say that? It's very important to get to a point where you enjoy being single. I don't think anyone to say, oh, I hate being single. If you're saying that you hate being single right now, that means that there's something that you need to change in your life. Because with all the things that we could be doing with our lives, all the things that we could be doing in terms of purpose, there's no reason for you to hate being single. Because there's so much you can accomplish being single. It's almost like we subconsciously hate being by ourselves, so it's not celebrated. We only celebrate when people come together with someone else or have babies. But the funny part is, right? And I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying that, because I've met people who are in healthy relationship. But when you talk to them, I can tell you there's a lot of compromise. I've seen things, okay? I've seen things where people are in situations where I'm like, man, I'm living a better life than some of these people who have someone else. 10 times way happier. I can come to my home right now in peace. Like, I'm not dreading to go to the house because I know there's gonna be an argument. Man, if I'm having an argument, I have it by myself. And I'm fine with that. Nothing is worth that, like that not having peace just to say that you have someone else, by the way. What would the world look like if we celebrated people who are single and married? Like, what would that look like? Because they're both good things. But what would the world look like if more people celebrated being single? If more people talked out about being single and really sharing it. I know we share the benefits, you know, you can lie as a starfish in the bed, but like sharing the true benefits of being single and how much it can help you grow and how much it can make you feel secure in yourself and how much it actually helps you when you're actually finding a person, because by then you get so secure and you grow so much confidence that you won't let any joker come into your life just like that. How much more would we celebrate it if we talked about it more? But instead, you just see people jumping from relationship to relationship. And what usually happens is the more that the relationship fails, right? The more that they jump and jump because they're finally trying to find that person. It's like their worth starts to go down. Their confidence starts to go down. Look it up when it comes to dating. Like, the more you date people, the more heartbreaks you get. It just slows you down in your purpose. There was one day where I was dating someone and it was for a short time. We connected very well, and what ended up happening was this person was consistent. You know how it goes. They're consistent, and then they were not consistent, and I remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm just dying. And I felt like, I was like, man, I don't feel like doing work because I'm just heartbroken right now. Oh my gosh, I just need to stop doing work. And I remember there was one night where I finished doing work because I had to get what I had to get done, and I started walking downstairs. I remember hearing immediate thoughts say, never will you date someone just to date someone so they distract you from your purpose. Every time you choose to date the wrong person, it just slows you down in your God-given purpose. And I was like, what? It was almost like the Holy Spirit. It sounded like a father. And it was like, never will you date someone just to date someone until it's the right person. And you know what? I never got that revelation before. It was so weird. It was like God opened my ears and all of a sudden everything made sense. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been dating. And every time I date someone that's not the right person, it just affects my mood and how I feel. And it affects how efficient I am. That was a day where I was like, next time I ain't dating no joker. I'm not dating someone just to feel it out, like, unless it's the right person. Because you know what? Your purpose is very important. As much as you may not feel it now as you're watching it, your purpose and your mission that God has given you is very important. As much as you may not see it, your mission is important. And by the way, go down in the link description. I do have a workshop coming out about purpose, and we're going to be doing hot seats. We're going to be talking back and forth. We're going to give you a clear plan, create your affirmations, make sure that you're taking those action steps. So click the link in the bio and join the workshop. Your mission is so important that you can't afford to have some joker slow you down. Notice that most of the time when people are depressed and they're very sad, it's usually because they don't have someone. It's usually related to dating. It takes you through these roller coasters. There's so much benefit to be a healthy single person. Every time I used to hear someone get married, let me tell you, the amount of despair I would feel, I would be crying. I would run to the bathroom and just cry and be like, I'm not enough. Like, something must be wrong with me. And I remember I was crying. I was crying over the person that just got engaged. And it didn't mean that I had any ill will against them. It was just a sense of despair. You're reflecting it back to yourself. And I remember I felt that way. And, you know, with the person getting married, I was like, what about me, God? And do you know, a couple years later, I spoke to that very person that got married, and I ended up finding that she was being realistic. It wasn't that they had a bad marriage or anything, but she was telling me some stuff where I was like, dang. I was like, this is what I was crying about? This person's marriage where she's having, you know, these issues and has to navigate them. And I was like, oh no. I think from then on, I never bat an eye again when I hear someone get married, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what type of things they're going through and have to get over. And basically, it was not worth my tears. I was like, never again. Because you're crying over someone's situation and you don't know the exact thing that they're currently going through. It's so deep. It's so important that you're not comparing yourself and you're not looking at other people in relationships. Because what I quickly found is that most people in relationships do not share. They don't share the hard parts. They don't share the bad moments. They only share the highlights. They only share the good part. Where they're matching in their clothes, where they're going on dinner. But they're not telling you about the argument they had about 10 minutes ago. Okay? Let's get real about it. And I didn't want to hear this, but I want you to hear this because I now understand it. The more you focus on your purpose, the less important it becomes finding someone. What I found is when I was not purpose focused, so when I say purpose focused, is that focus. I'm goal oriented. I'm, working a job, I'm doing hobbies. Like, purpose can be so many things. It's not just like making money and building a business. By the way, I just wanted to make that clear. Is that when I was not focused on something and I was just focused on finding someone, that's when it would get frustrating because I was not putting my focus on anything else. I was not focused on my purpose. I was just like, I just want to find a person. But I found out when I flipped that and I just started focusing on other things and putting my mind on other things, pottery and, doing different paintings and just enjoying life, that's when my life got better. Is taking my focus off. And you know what the best part was? It was just taking my focus off of finding that person, is when I would plan things with the girls and it would be so fun. I would be like, man, this feels better than dating. Like, I like going out with the girls and dressing up and just going out yourself and not having to worry about impressing anyone. And you're just going out with your friends. You're going out with your girls. And that changed the game for me. You need to experience these things for yourself to see how powerful it is when you shift your focus and decenter men. And all of a sudden, you're gonna find that taste, that need, that hunger to just find someone will start to decrease, and your shift of focus will start to increase into the things that you enjoy doing and what you love doing that makes you feel good, that doesn't bring your self-esteem down and get you frustrated because you're trying to or center a man that's not maybe paying attention to you because it's not the right person. You're gonna see that the hunger will change. And that's exactly what you want. That is the secret of being okay being single, is that you start focusing on your mission. And eventually, you may meet the person, whatever. But you're just focused on your mission because there's more to just being married. Even people who are married have a mission. You know how many people I will meet where they feel purposeless once they get married? Because then they realize, like, oh my God, it wasn't just meeting a person. They still have to find their talents and their purpose. It never stops. You might as well find it when you're single, so you don't have to deal with that when you're married. You know how many people I meet who are married are still looking for friends? They're still trying to find their purpose. They're still trying to figure it out. And what I find is the people who I see are like that, and I'm not saying that you don't go through different journeys, is that usually in their single life, they didn't do a lot of those things. So they never got to figure it out until they get married. But then now they have more responsibility. Just do it when you're single, okay? When I used to just focus on finding a man, you know what else I struggled with so much? Loneliness. Oh. Loneliness will creep on me, and that thing got me crying, feeling sad, so low. It got me on a dating app trying to just find someone to go on a date, and then you get frustrated when you don't find a guy to go on a date because you know how it goes. They just want one thing. Do you know how I got loneliness to disappear? Is when I stopped focusing on it anymore. And I started doing things I enjoy. I know you're gonna hear this repetitive, but it all connects. There's just something about it. I no longer feel lonely. I no longer feel bored anymore because I always have things to do. I train myself to get out the house and go places and try new things. It's not like before where I'll be in the house and I'll be like, oh my God, I wish I had someone. That narrative has changed. I don't say that anymore. I'm there to enjoy life, baby. I'm there to enjoy life. And that's what you need to do. But seriously, if you feel lonely, you need to push yourself to do things you enjoy. You need to get your mind off of finding someone. You need to shift your mind. It's just like if you're heartbroken. If you wallow in your heartbrokenness, you just feel even more heartbroken. But if you decide to do something different or you do something fun, it gets your mind off of those things. So you're not just focusing on that one thing. I just wanted to add this in here is you're going to have moments when you feel lonely or the thoughts may cross your mind because remember, like your muscle grows where you get stronger and stronger of not feeling those feelings. So then eventually loneliness becomes more softer. That's the best way to explain it. It becomes like a soft voice rather than a strong voice. And usually if that happens to me where I'll get a voice saying, man, I wish I had that person, I will usually acknowledge it and then I remind myself of how excited I am about my life, how I just had fun, how I have good friends, how I now know my mission in life. Like it doesn't center around that. It's it's like your life's so much more healthier. So now you have other things to think about, that 90% to think about where you're like, yeah, I wish I had someone, but that's okay in the right time because you don't want to get into the wrong relationship, especially being lonely. Finding a person while being lonely is the worst thing. So you might as well, if you feel lonely right now, it's time to figure out how to not feel that way and do other things because going into a relationship because you're lonely or finding someone while you're lonely, you are going to find out that you do not make the best decisions when you're in that moment. You never make the best decision when you're depressed, when you're in a moment of stress, anxiety. You never make good decisions. Anything you do. You know what I mostly want to make decisions, and I'm going to be real with you right now, is usually when I'm down and out. That's when I'll start questioning God about my purpose, and I'll be like, maybe I should make these changes. And I'm going to tell you this, those are not the best times to make decisions. It's not the time to make decisions when you are down and you're not feeling your best selves. You make the best decisions when you're feeling at your highest level, when you are in that best self era. So if you're single, if you are lonely, hey, not the time to find a person because you're going to just find anyone that pays attention to you, that tries to fill that void. But do note that if you don't deal with it, you're going to still feel lonely even if you find a person. See how life works? When I would find someone when I was lonely, I would tend to be clingy and I was depending on them to fill that void. I was depending on them to always hang out with me so I no longer feel lonely. That is an insecurity that you don't want in a relationship. Toxic. The key thing is you have to see the benefit. If you don't see the benefits, it's very hard to be okay with being single. You want to get to a point that you can actually say, you know what? If God gives me a person, it's fine. But if I'm single, I'm okay with that. You want to get to a point of contentment where you're just okay with it. You get to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm okay with being single if I don't meet the person. And it's usually when you least expect it. Like that's the point where you want to get at. And that's the point where I'm at right now where I'm like, if I don't meet the person, I'm okay. Right now, I'm very secure in myself. I know who I am and I know what I want. And I'm not in a point where I would allow myself to get into a very insecure point. I'm at a point where I'm very happy and I have a project to complete, okay? Apart from finding a person. And that's where you want to get to. It took me many years and you need to give yourself a lot of grace. It actually came to a point where I had to make a conscious decision for myself because I was very miserable and unhappy being single, okay? Very miserable. Let's say if it takes me 10 years to meet the right person, not including dating, but it takes me 10 years to meet the right person. Would I be okay with being miserable and happy during those 10 years of being single? And to me, that was not worth it because you know why? I don't think I would make it 10 years if I stayed the way I was. Here's the thing is that the more you stay miserable and happy, you know what happens? Depression comes in, loneliness comes in, dissatisfaction, and it's very hard to stay very sad. And so I had to make a decision. Do I want to learn to be single and happy or be miserable until I meet the right person? And I obviously chose the latter. I was like, you know what? I want to figure out how I can be single and happy. So if I stayed single for the next 10, 20 years, I would live a fulfilled life, and that's the goal. You have to make that conscious decision for yourself and ask yourself if you are in that place. Would I be okay with being miserable and unhappy until I meet that person? And you don't know when you will. Or would you rather be single and happy and then start enjoying your life right now and take it off of pause and press play? What will you choose? Dating with wisdom. There was so much pressure when I would date that I would always be like, oh my gosh, is he gonna be my next husband? Am I gonna just end up marrying him and planning a wedding? There was a time where I became so focused when I was dating that I would be like, am I gonna marry him? Is he gonna be the one? And then when it didn't happen, my world would come crashing down. And guess what would happen? I would feel worse about being single. And then you're no longer okay being single because you're like, well, this didn't work, so there must be something wrong with me. And you go down that rabbit hole. You need to change the narrative. So if you're going on a date, yes, it's okay to obviously know what you want, but it's important that you're having fun. Too many women go on dates not having fun and not just enjoying the moment as well. And I'm not saying hookup culture. That ain't my thing. So if you want to do hookups, that's another channel for another day. Well, I think this is funny. So when you're trying to develop a friendship, you don't go into that friendship being like, oh my gosh, that girl is gonna be my best friend. No, you have the mindset where you're like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy our time together. We're gonna talk about boys, we're gonna talk about marriage, babies, businesses, goals, and we're just gonna keep on meeting and see how it develops in terms of friendship. And that's the same mindset that you need to take, and it will just take the pressure off. Geez, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. Take your foot off of the gas and just enjoy the moment. Enjoy wherever you guys go. Enjoy the conversation. Relish it. Don't think so much about the future. Think about the present. What are they doing? Because you know what? Sometimes we think so much about the future and so much about meeting that person. That's how we miss the red flags. Because by then it's too late, and that person may not be what your imagination is, but you already created a version of that person in your mind that you're about to marry, or of where you're going to be in the future with them, that you miss red flags. You miss things that you may not like about them, that you may not want to have going into the future. I see it all the time. If you're always focused on what's happening in the future, you're going to miss out on what's happening right now. Dating has just become a obsession. Do you know how many women I know? They're happy about everything. They have everything that they should have in their lives, but they're still unhappy because they don't have that one thing. They don't have that other person. I get it. I want us to get to a point where we're so happy with our lives that we're like, you know what? If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. We need to be happy with the things that are in our lives right now. The more rejection you get, you start to create the negative narrative of what single is, when single is not really that. Single is not really negative, but the reason why it gets such a negative connotation is because you associate being single with rejection. We associate single being finding a husband, going through heartbreaks. We associate singles of not being chosen, when really we want to change that a bit and associate single with having fun. Associate single with doing things that you enjoy doing with friends. Associate being single with going on fun dates and getting an opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't have met people and connect with people and have interesting conversation. Even if it doesn't go anywhere or go the direction you don't want it to go, you need to change the way you see being single. So that way you have a better outlook on being single, so then you're okay with being single. You're not going to be okay with being single if you constantly have that negative outlook on being single. You got me? Tell me in the comments if you get what I'm saying. We've gotten so obsessive with finding someone that we would get so low, and we get so used to feeling so low about ourselves and not finding the person, and we would still go back on the app. I'm guilty of that too. But it's now that I'm aware of it, I'm telling you guys. And so that's how you know, like, it's become this norm, and it's not normal, of going through a rabbit hole of getting so low and just going back on because you're like, I need that person, so I need to jump back into needles again and get pricked again because I need that man, so I need to put myself through that. No, you don't. No, you don't. Go to the poolside, go to a beach, go do some salsa dancing. No, you don't have to go through all that heartache just to find a man. If you're not able to find a healthy balance when you're not dating, you should not be on the app. Take a break. Finding no man, husband, serious relationship is worth your well-being. You are important. You are worth it to take a break. You don't need to put yourself through all of that to find someone. I want you to recite this. It's completely okay to be alone. Say it again. It is okay for me to be alone. It's okay to be single. You not diligently searching for someone is not going to prohibit you from meeting people. Of course, if you stay in the house, you're not meeting anyone. But if you are consistently going outside and meeting people and doing things you enjoy, you're bound to meet people, because where there's groups, there's people. There's opportunities. I would even go as far as this, and I know people have opinions about this, but don't you think, especially if you're a Christian, that God is power enough to bring that person to meet you wherever you are? Don't you think that while you're working on your purpose, that he can gradually bring that person to meet you where you are in the mission that you're doing? God is that powerful. He created all of us. He created our stories. He can bring that person for you. You know, the other day I was just walking in a mall and a guy came up to me telling me how beautiful I was and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, so you see, like, if you're just out and about, there's someone may just see you and be like, hey, you're very beautiful. I want to see if we could talk and see if it's something there. You don't know. But if you're in the house and you're choosing to be unhappy and just be behind the apps, and you're not going out to meet anyone, you're not going out to enjoy your life, it won't work. You need to go out and enjoy your life right now. You are not in lack, you are full of faith. If you're full of faith, you don't have to worry about lack, because God always meets you wherever you are. Listen, I was behind on rent. You can go back to that video. And he brought a random person to offer me to bring me up to speed for my rent and car, and didn't have the money. So don't you think that God can do the same for you in your relationship and bring that right guy? Imagine you didn't have to go through all that stress of finding the person and weed through all the guys, and you just had to just do your thing and enjoy the life that God has given you and go after your purpose, and then God just brings the person. Boom, everything just starts to align. And it could be that simple.